He said I'd never amount to anything without him. As he packed his bags to leave with her, I made a promise to myself. 5 years later, my net worth hit 7 figures while he was sliding into my DMs begging for a second chance. I never thought I'd be the girl telling a story about heartbreak that turned into success. 3 years ago, my life looked completely different. I was working as a marketing assistant at a mid-sized agency, living in a small apartment with my boyfriend of 5 years, James. We had met in college, that classic story of the ambitious girl falling for the charismatic guy everyone wanted to know. I thought we were building something real, something that would last. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but whose is? I was the planner, the one who organized our life together, while he was spontaneous, always chasing the next exciting opportunity. I admired his ambition, even when it meant late nights at the office networking with clients or weekend trips I couldn't join because of my work schedule. I was proud of him, supporting his dreams while quietly nurturing my own on the side. We had talked about marriage, about building a life together. I had Pinterest boards full of wedding ideas and had even started looking at houses in neighborhoods we both liked. James would smile and nod, squeeze my hand, tell me he wanted that future too. Just not yet. There was always another promotion to chase, another investment to make before we could settle down. I believed him because I wanted to, because I thought love meant patience. That all changed on a rainy Tuesday evening. I came home early, excited to surprise him with tickets to a concert he'd been talking about for months. The surprise was mine when I walked through our apartment door. His suitcases were open on our bed, half packed. At first I thought it was for a business trip he'd forgotten to mention. Then I saw her text lighting up his phone on the nightstand. Can't wait to start our new life together. When he came out of the shower and saw me standing there, he didn't even try to lie. I've been seeing Melissa for 6 months. She got offered a job in Chicago and I'm going with her. Just like that, 5 years reduced to a single sentence. When I asked about all our plans, all the promises, he looked at me with something between pity and annoyance. Let's be real, Kate. You're too comfortable playing it safe. You'll never take the risks needed to really make something of yourself. I need someone who matches my ambition. Those words cut deeper than the betrayal itself. Not just that he was leaving, but that he saw me as small, as someone who would never amount to anything significant, someone not worth staying for. If you've ever been underestimated or betrayed by someone who was supposed to believe in you, stick around. Because what happened next shocked everyone, especially James. This isn't just a revenge story. It's about how I turned my heartbreak into an empire worth millions, and how the person who walked away became the one filled with regret. I'm sharing every step, every failure, and every breakthrough that transformed me from the girl crying on her kitchen floor to the woman who now runs a 7-figure business. The best revenge isn't just success. It's becoming someone they never thought you could be. After James left that night, I sat on our kitchen floor until sunrise, cycling between numbness, rage, and devastating sadness. We had met during sophomore year of college. He was the charming business major who always had the perfect answer in class, and I was the quiet marketing student who preferred working behind the scenes. Our friends called us the perfect match. His outgoing nature balanced my thoughtfulness. His spontaneity complemented my planning. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. They were everywhere, hiding in plain sight, the gradually increasing late nights, the sudden password changes on his phone, the way he started criticizing small things about me. My career ambitions weren't bold enough, my dreams were too safe, my ideas for our future together were too conventional. I made excuses for all of it, believing relationships required compromise and understanding. I remember the weekend trip he cancelled at the last minute due to work commitments, only for me to see photos of him at a rooftop bar posted by mutual friends. When I confronted him, he made me feel irrational for questioning him. "You don't understand the networking I have to do for us to have the life we want," he'd say. Somehow, I always ended up apologizing. 3 months before he left, I found a receipt for an expensive jewelry store in his jacket pocket while doing laundry. I hoped, it might be an engagement ring. My heart raced with excitement. I didn't mention it, wanting him to have his moment. Now I know it was a bracelet for Melissa, the marketing director at his firm. The same Melissa who had been to our apartment for dinner parties. The same Melissa who had hugged me and complimented my homemade desserts. The day everything fell apart started normally. I had received praise at work for a campaign idea and left early, excited to celebrate with James. I still remember the expression on his face when he emerged from the shower to find me standing by his half-packed suitcases. Not guilt, not even surprise, just annoyance at being caught before he could leave on his terms. "Were you ever going to tell me in person?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "I was going to call you tonight," he replied, continuing to pack as if I was simply an inconvenience. "Melissa and I didn't plan this, it just happened. She gets me in ways you never have." When I asked about the future we had planned, he actually laughed. "Kate, let's be honest with each other for once. You're not built for the kind of success I want. You're too afraid to take risks, too content with mediocrity. Melissa challenges me, pushes me toward greatness." The final blow came as he zipped his suitcase. "You'll probably still be at that same desk job 5 years from now, while we'll be building something extraordinary. Some people are meant for bigger things, and some people—" He looked at me with pity. "Some people are meant for exactly what they have." He left most of his things behind, saying he would send for them later. As the door closed behind him, his words echoed in my head. Not just the betrayal of our relationship, but his complete dismissal of who I was and what I could become. That night, curled up in our suddenly empty apartment, I made myself a promise through my tears. I would prove him wrong, not for him but for me. I had no idea how, but I knew with absolute certainty that the woman he described was not who I truly was, or who I would remain. The first week after James left was a blur of tissues, ice cream, and unanswered calls from concerned friends. I took sick days from work and barely left my apartment. His casual cruelty played on repeat in my mind. You're too afraid to take risks, too content with mediocrity. The worst part was wondering if he might be right. On day 8 of my pity party, my older sister Sarah showed up unannounced with groceries and tough love. She pulled open the curtains I'd kept shut, letting harsh sunlight expose the mess I'd become. "You have exactly 1 more day to wallow," she announced, picking up empty takeout containers. "Then you're getting your life back." That night, after Sarah left, I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I found myself staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the puffy-eyed woman looking back. "Who are you?" I whispered. "Who do you want to be?" It sounds dramatic now, but that moment was my turning point. I realized I had been defining myself through James's eyes for years, measuring my worth by his approval. By morning, something had shifted. I showered, put on real clothes, and started cleaning out James's remaining things. With each item I packed away, I felt lighter. I wasn't just clearing physical space, I was reclaiming my life. When I found his business books on our shelf, instead of boxing them up, I sat down and began reading. If he thought I lacked ambition, maybe it was time to discover what I was truly capable of. I started devouring everything I could about entrepreneurship and digital marketing, skills I'd developed in my job but never fully leveraged. I took free online courses at night and on weekends. I created spreadsheets analyzing different business models, evaluating which ones matched my skills and required minimal startup capital. The marketing assistant, who had been content with steady paychecks, was transforming into someone with vision and purpose. 3 weeks after James left, I used my lunch break to attend a local business networking event, something I would have never done before, preferring to let James be the networker in our relationship. That's where I met Elena, a successful e-commerce consultant who would become my first mentor. When I nervously shared my situation and budding ideas, she didn't offer sympathy. Instead, she said something that changed everything. The best time to start building is when you have nothing to lose. Eleanor helped me identify my unique strengths, my eye for design, my understanding of consumer psychology from my marketing background, and my meticulous planning abilities, the very trait James had dismissed as playing it safe. "That's not caution," Elena told me. "That's thoroughness. Most businesses fail because people don't plan enough." With Elena's guidance, I launched my first side business, a small digital marketing consultancy focused on helping local businesses improve their online presence. I worked evenings and weekends while keeping my day job. My first client was the struggling bakery around the corner from my apartment. I redesigned their social media strategy for free just to prove what I could do. Within 2 months, their online orders had increased by 30%, and they became my first paying client and referred me to others. Not everything worked. My attempt at drop-shipping custom phone cases was a disaster that cost me most of my savings. I tried creating an online course too early, before I had established enough credibility, and sold exactly 2 copies, both to sympathetic friends. Each failure taught me valuable lessons and, surprisingly, made me more resilient. 6 months after James walked out, I no longer cried myself to sleep. Instead, I stayed up late planning, creating, and dreaming, bigger than I ever had before. I wasn't just surviving without him. I was discovering parts of myself that had been dormant during our relationship. His departure hadn't diminished me. It had created space for me to grow in ways I never imagined possible. The woman he claimed was afraid to take risks had taken more chances in half a year than in the previous 5 years combined. The awakening wasn't just professional, it was personal. I was becoming someone new, someone who believed in herself without needing anyone else's validation. Someone who saw failure as data, not defeat. Someone who finally understood that the greatest risk isn't trying and failing, it's never trying at all. With my confidence growing and a few small wins under my belt, I knew it was time to get serious. My digital marketing consultancy was bringing in modest side income, but I wanted more. I wasn't just out to prove James wrong anymore. I had discovered a genuine passion for building something meaningful. The pivotal moment came unexpectedly. One of my small business clients, a boutique skincare brand owner named Maya, mentioned her struggles finding affordable, professional product photography. "I need consistent, beautiful photos for social media, but professional photographers are out of my budget," she explained. Having dabbled in photography as a hobby, I offered to help her with a small batch of images. When Maya posted my photos, her engagement skyrocketed. Within days, 3 other small brands reached out, asking who had done her photography. That's when it clicked. I had stumbled upon a massive gap in the market. Small e-commerce brands needed high-quality visual content for their digital presence, but most couldn't afford traditional commercial photography services. I took the biggest risk of my life. I quit my stable marketing job and launched Visual Vault, a content creation studio specializing in affordable, subscription-based photography and social media assets for small to medium-sized e-commerce brands. I converted my second bedroom into a makeshift studio, invested in proper lighting equipment, and created packages tailored specifically for brands that couldn't afford traditional agencies. The first 3 months were terrifying. I drained my savings, maxed out a credit card purchasing equipment, and worked 16-hour days. Some nights I'd panic, hearing James's voice in my head, "You're not built for success." But each morning, I'd get up and keep pushing forward. What separated my service from competitors was my marketing background. I wasn't just delivering pretty pictures, I was creating strategic content designed to convert to sales. I studied each client's audience and competitors, creating customized content calendars that actually drove results. Word began to spread. 6 months in, I hit my first major milestone, $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue. I still remember staring at my accounting software in disbelief. By month 8, I couldn't handle the workload alone anymore and hired my first employee, a recent photography graduate named Taylor, who brought fresh creative energy to the business. As we approached the 1-year mark, something unexpected happened. A major beauty brand influencer featured one of our clients' products on her Instagram, specifically commenting on the gorgeous, consistent aesthetic of their feed, our work. Overnight, inquiries doubled. I had to temporarily close new client applications while scrambling to scale our operations. That forced me to think bigger. I developed a training program and started bringing on contract photographers who followed our specific methodology. I invested in project management software to streamline our workflows. Each new problem that arose was an opportunity to build better systems. The hardest part wasn't the work. It was maintaining belief in myself during the inevitable setbacks. When a major potential client chose another agency over us, I spent a night questioning everything. When our server crashed and we lost a week's worth of undelivered content, I had to face angry clients. Each crisis tested my resolve, but ultimately made both me and the business stronger. 18 months after launch, we hit $50,000 in monthly revenue. I moved the business into a real studio space and expanded our services to include video content. By the 2-year mark, we reached $100,000 monthly, over $1 million in annual revenue. The girl James claimed would still be at that same desk job was now running a 7-figure business with a team of 15 people. Success changed my life in tangible ways. I bought my first home, a beautiful loft in the city center. I took my parents on their dream vacation to Italy. I started an investment portfolio. But the most significant changes weren't material. I walked differently, spoke differently. The constant knot of anxiety I'd carried for years had dissolved. I no longer needed external validation to know my worth. The climb wasn't a straight line upward. It was a series of peaks and valleys, moments of brilliant clarity followed by periods of doubt. The difference was that each setback no longer felt like confirmation of my inadequacy. It was simply information, a problem to solve, another opportunity to prove my resilience. The woman who had once been afraid to take risks had become someone who calculated them carefully, then jumped without hesitation. I'll never forget the exact moment I realized I had become a millionaire. It wasn't when my accountant confirmed it or when I checked my business valuation. It was on a random Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in my office overlooking the city, reviewing our quarterly reports, when it suddenly hit me. The numbers on these pages represented freedom. Not just financial freedom, but freedom from everything I thought I was supposed to be. Hitting 7 figures wasn't a single dramatic event. It was the culmination of countless small decisions, failures, pivots, and perseverance. Visual Vault had expanded beyond photography into a full-service content creation studio with specialized departments for photography, videography, graphic design, and social media management. We had offices in 2 cities and a client waitlist that grew despite our premium pricing. The business I had built out of heartbreak had become an industry innovator. The financial reality took some getting used to. Growing up in a middle-class family where money was always carefully budgeted, I initially felt almost guilty about my success. I kept living relatively modestly for months after reaching millionaire status, as if spending might somehow jinx everything. My financial advisor finally sat me down and said, "You've built something sustainable. It's okay to enjoy the fruits of your labor while continuing to grow." So I did. I bought my dream apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a kitchen where I could finally indulge my long-neglected love of cooking. I created a scholarship fund at my old university for marketing students from underprivileged backgrounds. I built a robust, rainy day fund that eliminated the financial anxiety I'd carried my entire adult life. But the most luxurious purchase wasn't a thing, it was time. The ability to take a Wednesday off if I needed it, the freedom to travel without counting vacation days, the space to think long-term instead of surviving paycheck to paycheck. What surprised me most wasn't the money. It was how profoundly I had changed as a person. The woman James left behind would barely recognize me now. Where I had once been conflict avoidant, I now confidently negotiated multi-year contracts with major brands. Where I had once sought approval before making decisions, I now trusted my instincts implicitly. The quiet marketing assistant had transformed into a sought-after speaker at industry events. My confidence wasn't just professional, it permeated every aspect of my life. I began setting stronger boundaries in friendships. I started dating again, but with entirely different standards. No longer was I looking for someone to complete me or validate my worth. Any partner would need to match the relationship I now had with myself. One evening, at a friend's dinner party, someone who didn't know my history asked about my journey to success. As I shared a condensed version, leaving out the heartbreak catalyst, I realized something profound. James had become a footnote in my story, not the defining chapter. The business wasn't about proving him wrong anymore. It was about proving myself right, about honoring the potential that had always existed within me, waiting for the right conditions to flourish. That night, looking out at the city lights from my balcony, I felt a deep sense of gratitude, not despite the betrayal, but because of it. If James hadn't left, I might have continued dimming my light to make him comfortable. I might have kept postponing my dreams to support his. The relationship I thought was my greatest blessing had actually been limiting me in ways I couldn't see until I was free of it. Being a self-made millionaire isn't about the money. It's about becoming someone who knows her value isn't determined by anyone else's assessment. It's about learning that heartbreak, failure, and rejection aren't endpoints. They're doorways to transformation if you're brave enough to walk through them. The woman who once thought she'd lost everything had gained something far more precious than a relationship. She'd found herself, and no one could ever take that away again. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days after James walked out of my life, his name appeared on my phone. I was in the middle of a strategy meeting when his message came through. "Hey Kate, long time, can we talk?" I stared at those 7 words, feeling nothing like the emotional earthquake I would have expected. No racing heart, no sweaty palms, just mild curiosity mixed with something that surprised me, indifference. I finished my meeting before even considering a response. Later that evening, I opened his message again. Several more had followed throughout the day. "I've been thinking about you. I miss our conversations. I'd love to catch up over coffee." The old Kate would have analyzed every word, searching for hidden meanings and possibilities. The new Kate simply responded, "I'm curious about what prompted this after 3 years of silence." His reply came instantly, "I've been following your success. What you've built is incredible. I always knew you had it in you." The audacity was almost comical. I could practically hear the revisionist history forming in real time. This from the man who told me I was too content with mediocrity as he packed to leave with another woman. I didn't respond that night. I wanted to sit with my feelings, to make sure whatever I did next came from strength, not lingering hurt. A week later, I agreed to a coffee meeting, not out of any desire for reconciliation, but to fully close that chapter with the clarity my success had given me. Walking into that cafe felt like visiting a foreign country I used to live in. Vaguely familiar, but no longer home. James looked both the same and different. Designer clothes, the same confident posture, but new lines around his eyes, a certain tiredness I hadn't seen before. When he saw me, his face lit up with what seemed like genuine warmth, but also something else, the unmistakable look of someone who had miscalculated. "You look amazing," he said as I sat down. "Success suits you." The conversation that followed was revealing. Chicago hadn't worked out. He and Melissa had broken up after 8 months. His career had stalled following a company restructuring. Meanwhile, he'd watched from afar as I built Visual Vault into an industry leader, my name appearing in business publications and entrepreneur spotlights. "I made the biggest mistake of my life walking away from you," he finally said, reaching for my hand across the table. I instinctively moved it away, not out of anger but self-preservation. "We were good together, Kate. Maybe we could—" "No," I interrupted, surprising myself with the gentle firmness in my voice. "We weren't good together, James. You didn't see me. Not really. You saw a version of me that fit what you needed at the time." "That's not fair," he protested. "I loved you." "Maybe you did," I acknowledged, "but you didn't believe in me." And that made all the difference. Over the next few weeks, the messages continued, reminiscing about good times, suggesting dinner, commenting on my Instagram posts within seconds of publication. Each attempt met with increasingly firm boundaries from me. It wasn't about punishing him. I had moved beyond that need for vindication. It was about honoring the woman I had become. The final message came after I was featured in a national business magazine. A long paragraph about regret, about how he hadn't appreciated what was right in front of him, about how he thinks about me every day. "You're the one that got away," he wrote, "or rather, the one I stupidly let go." I sat with his message for a long time, reflecting on the irony. The relationship I had thought was essential to my happiness had actually been the barrier to finding it. The man whose approval I had desperately sought was now seeking mine. The betrayal that felt like an ending had actually been my beginning. My response was brief. "Thank you for being part of my journey, even in ways neither of us expected. I wish you clarity in finding your own path forward, as I have found mine." I never heard from him again. The experience taught me something profound about regret. It's not about wishing to undo the past. It's about recognizing the cost of our choices only after we've paid them. James's biggest regret wasn't losing me as I was, but missing out on who I became. Meanwhile, my journey had taken me so far beyond that relationship that regret wasn't even part of my emotional vocabulary anymore. The girl he left was gone, not because she was broken, but because she had outgrown the container he tried to keep her in. In her place stood a woman who understood that sometimes the things we think we want aren't what we need at all. And sometimes, being someone's biggest regret is nowhere near as powerful as being your own greatest achievement. Looking back on my journey from heartbroken ex to self-made millionaire, I realized the transformation wasn't just about building a business, it was about rebuilding myself. The lessons I learned along the way weren't found in business books or entrepreneurship courses. They were discovered in the quiet moments of doubt, in the failures that seemed devastating at the time, and in the small victories that gradually accumulated into something extraordinary. The most powerful shift happened in my mindset long before it showed up in my bank account. When James left, he took my confidence, but inadvertently gave me the greatest gift. The opportunity to discover my worth wasn't tied to anyone's perception of me. The moment I stopped trying to prove him wrong and started focusing on proving myself right was when everything changed. If you're at the beginning of your own journey, whether triggered by heartbreak, professional setback, or simply the nagging feeling that you're capable of more, I want to share the mindset shifts that made all the difference for me. First, recognize that rejection is often protection. What feels like devastation in the moment is frequently the universe clearing space for something better aligned with your authentic self. The relationship or situation you're desperately clinging to might actually be preventing your evolution. When James walked out, he unknowingly opened the door to possibilities I couldn't see while in his shadow. Second, understand that your identity is not fixed. It's fluid and expansive. We often stay small because we've internalized others' limited perceptions of us. You're not ambitious enough. "You're too cautious," "You're not a natural entrepreneur." These labels only have power if you accept them. The beauty of starting over is that you get to decide who you want to become. Third, embrace failure as education, not evidence of your inadequacy. When my first business attempts flopped, I didn't take it as confirmation of James's assessment of me. Instead, I asked, "What is this teaching me? How can I apply this lesson moving forward?" Every successful person you admire has a graveyard of failures behind them. They just don't put them on display. Fourth, surround yourself with people who see your potential, not just your past or present. Elena, my first mentor, never once entertained my self-doubt. She treated my success as inevitable, merely a matter of strategy and persistence. Find those people who believe in your vision before there's evidence to support it. On a practical level, if you're rebuilding after heartbreak or betrayal, protect your energy fiercely. Unfollow your ex on social media. Decline invitations where you'll have to explain your situation repeatedly. Create physical and mental space for your renaissance. Your healing and growth deserve as much intentional focus as any business plan. For those specifically looking to build financial independence, start where you are with what you have. My $1 million business began in a spare bedroom, with equipment purchased on credit. Identify the intersection of your skills, market needs, and passion. That sweet spot is your competitive advantage. Don't try to compete where you have no natural strengths. Watch for warning signs in all relationships, not just romantic ones. Business partnerships, friendships, and professional connections all deserve your discernment. Someone who dismisses your ideas, takes credit for your contributions, or makes you feel small is showing you who they are. Believe them the first time. Perhaps most importantly, understand that the goal isn't revenge success, it's authentic fulfillment. If your motivation is solely to prove someone wrong, you'll find that achievement hollow when reached. My true liberation came when I realized my success had nothing to do with James anymore. It was entirely mine, built on my terms, reflecting my values. The woman I am today isn't special or uniquely gifted. She simply refused to accept the limitations others tried to place on her. She understood that heartbreak, betrayal, and setbacks aren't punishments. They're invitations to reimagine what's possible. She recognized that the power to define her worth had always been hers to claim. Your journey won't look exactly like mine. Your version of success might not be $1 million business, but I promise you this, on the other side of your deepest disappointment lies the potential for your greatest transformation. The question isn't whether you have what it takes, it's whether you're ready to become the person who no longer needs someone else's validation to recognize your own magnificence. It's been 3.5 years since that rainy Tuesday, when I found James packing his bags. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Other times, the memory is so clear, I can still feel the weight of those moments. But that's the thing about transformative experiences. They stay with you, not as wounds, but as reminders of how far you've come. Today, Visual Vault employs over 30 people across 3 cities. We've worked with brands I used to dream about featuring on my resume. Last month, I was invited to give the commencement speech at my alma mater, the same university where I once doubted if I belonged in the business program at all. Life has a beautiful way of coming full circle when you stay true to yourself. People often ask if I'm grateful to James for leaving. It's a complicated question. I'm not grateful for the betrayal or the cruel words spoken as he walked out. But I am deeply grateful for the wake-up call that forced me to see myself clearly for perhaps the first time. Sometimes, we need our entire world to collapse before we can build something authentic in its place. The truth is, I probably wouldn't have discovered my potential if he had stayed. I might have continued dimming my light to make room for his. I might have kept postponing my dreams to support his ambitions. The relationship I once thought was my greatest blessing had actually become my most comfortable limitation. Breaking free of it, even through heartbreak, was the catalyst I needed. What I want you to take from my story isn't that success is the best revenge, although I won't pretend there wasn't satisfaction in proving James wrong. What I hope you'll remember is that other people's assessments of your potential are just opinions, not facts. The only limits that truly define your life are the ones you accept as truth. My journey continues to evolve. Visual Vault is expanding into international markets. I've started mentoring young female entrepreneurs, paying forward what Elena did for me. I've even begun writing a book about building businesses born from personal reinvention. Each new challenge brings fresh opportunities for growth. As for my personal life, yes, I'm dating someone wonderful, someone who celebrates my ambition rather than feeling threatened by it, someone who sees my success not as competition but as inspiration. But the most important relationship I've built is with myself. I no longer measure my worth through anyone else's eyes or seek external validation for my choices. That kind of self-trust is worth more than any business valuation. If you're standing where I once stood, heartbroken, betrayed, or simply underestimated, know this: that pain you feel right now can become the foundation for your greatest transformation. Your lowest moment can become the launching pad for an extraordinary life if you refuse to let someone else's limitation become your identity. If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Next week, I'll be sharing the exact business model that helped me scale Visual Vault from 0 to 7 figures, including the pricing structure and client acquisition strategies that made all the difference. Remember, sometimes the people who walk away from you are making space for something much better to enter your life. And sometimes, that something better is the person you become when you finally give yourself permission to shine. Thank you for listening to my story. Now I can't wait to hear yours.